Hello everybody and welcome to the Money Man. Now I've been promising you content for a while and I keep saying, oh, I've got loads of stuff to share, but November is turning out to be the month of hell for me in terms of workload, so I'm not actually producing that much stuff at the moment. However, in order to actually continue to produce videos, I've decided to go back to a more rudimentary style, which is just me and a table and a camera and some banknotes. So I do apologise for the devolution somewhat of these videos, but hopefully I can still continue to produce content for you guys. So, what have I got for you today? Well, as many of you know, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has got quite an interesting system of banknote production. You know, we've got commercial banks, we've got central bank, being the Bank of England, all producing their own banknotes. We have banknotes for England, we have banknotes for Scotland, we have banknotes for Northern Ireland. But what about Wales? Well, Wales did have its own banknotes at a certain point in the not-so-distant past. So what I'm going to show you today are several examples of the Welsh pound. That's right. Now you're probably thinking, there's no Welsh pound. What are you talking about? That's madness. Well, there was. It just didn't last for very long, so you may not know about these. If you don't, I'm really happy to share something incredibly new with you today. So let's have a look at the Welsh pound. Here we go. So the first one I'm going to show you is actually a 10 shilling note, the lowest denomination that I have, and here it is. Now, these notes do look quite unusual. They're not actually printed on a cotton paper material. They're actually printed on some kind of card. Now, you might be thinking, well, what on earth is going on here? Well, the interesting thing about these banknotes is that they were not produced by the Bank of England, obviously. You can tell that straight away from the rudimentary design. But they were actually produced by a private banker, a Welsh banker called Richard Hugh Williams of Llandudno in Wales. And what he decided to do was he actually decided to start issuing his own banknotes from his private banking venture. And you might think, well, you know, these things are just coupons. Well, no, they're not actually, because these were actually approved by the Board of Trade in the UK. And although they weren't officially legal tender in Wales, they would have enjoyed a similar status to the banknotes that we see produced in Northern Ireland and in Scotland. So these notes would have acted more like promissory notes. Okay, so they're in sort of like a grey area of being official tender but not legal tender, if you know what I mean. So it's interesting. So these banknotes were actually created in 1969 and were sort of circulated up until 1972 because unfortunately the Welsh banker Mr. Williams, Hugh Williams, actually became bankrupt. And the venture failed, and the collapse of the private banking enterprise that was producing these notes basically, you know, sealed the fate of them. So they were no longer issued and they were no longer used in circulation. So that's why you actually have them cancelled with the overprint here. That, well, it's been stamped on actually. It's not an overprint, it's been stamped. So there we go. So that is the interesting history of the Welsh pound. It lasted 3 years, unfortunately. However, we've still got these incredible examples that we can examine today. So you can see we've got, on the top right, we've got the Welsh dragon, which is the national symbol of Wales. You can see we've got 10 shillings down here, and you can see that the banknotes, or promissory notes, what I should say, are printed with Welsh and English. And you can see down here, Chief Treasury of Wales Limited. So you can see private banking enterprise, okay? Nothing to do with the Bank of England. Now, if these notes had become part of the established circulating banknotes in Wales, then it would have been likely that they would have been overseen, the production would have been overseen by the Bank of England. That is how it works in Scotland and Northern Ireland. They can't just produce as many banknotes as they like. They actually have to follow the rules and regulations of the Bank of England, and the Bank of England actually gives them amounts that they can actually print. So that would have been the case for these Welsh pounds as well, if they got to that stage, but obviously they didn't. So let's have a look at some of the design features. Castles are featured very prominently on these banknotes. You can see we've got a wonderful castle right here, and the sheep. The sheep. The Welsh are famous for their sheep. So you'll see sheep on quite a lot of these banknotes. Now if we spin it around and look at the back, and again I'm saying banknote, I should say promissory note, these aren't banknotes. You can see the reverse is actually quite simple. And you can see that the cut is not very good either. The image is sort of set a little bit further down. It doesn't sit nicely in the middle. The orientation is not great. So there we go. So slightly crappy on the reverse, I would say. So there we go. But the front, the obverse, really nice. So let's have a look at another denomination. I've actually got two variations of the £1 or one punt. That is as it is known. So here we go. So this kind of falls in line with the other designs that I have. You can see that they sort of make a series. But you can see roughly we've got the same design features. Shame that isn't a 0, because that would have been a very nice radar serial number if it was 808808. But never mind. But you can see we've got Conway Castle here. So if you're big into medieval castles, definitely check out Wales. Pretty much the whole of the UK, we're absolutely inundated with the damn things. They're everywhere. Very lucky to have such a rich heritage preserved in so many wonderful buildings around the UK. It's definitely something we take for granted. Us Brits, we take them for granted, but we're very lucky to have so many amazing castles in such an incredible condition these days, and they're very well looked after by organisations like Heritage England and stuff like that. But there we go. You can see another castle on the front here, and you might notice that Welsh is very different from English, and the reason for that is because Welsh actually predates the arrival of the English language, which has its roots in things like Latin and Anglo-Saxon. So the Welsh language is more Celtic based, whereas obviously the English language kind of goes back to Anglo-Saxon, which is obviously a Germanic language. So they're not mutually intelligible at all. If you're an English speaker, there is no chance that you can understand any Welsh just by looking at it or hearing it, and vice versa is true. It's a very unusual language, but very interesting. Spin it around, look at the back. You can see, again, very basic on the reverse. Yeah, so there we go. So I have another variation of the pound note. This one is slightly different, a little bit more interesting. I like the design of this one. So you can see we've got Llandudno there, where our private banker, Richard Hugh Williams, was from. And yeah, there we go. So, yep, you can see the word Cymru there, which I believe is the Welsh word for Wales. So there we go. Very nice banknote indeed. Promissory note, sorry, it's a force of habit. Spin it around and look at the back. Now the reverse is very interesting on this one. It's completely different and way more interesting. So you can see it actually details on the back of this one. This promissory note, drawn by the Chief Treasury of Wales Limited, promises to pay the bearer 1 day after sight the sum of £1 sterling. So there we go. We actually have the terms and conditions on the reverse of this wonderful banknote. And this has got to be the best. Such a glorious image on the back of this wonderful trading port with this beautiful castle in the background. Absolutely exquisite. If that's not a work of art, I don't know what is. So there we go. Let's have a look at a few more. Now I have a £5 or 5 punt with another glorious castle on the front, which is sort of nestled on a little rocky outcrop, looking over a valley. Lots of hills and valleys in Wales, and that's why it's perfect sheep country. So there we go. Very nice banknote. Not much more to say about these really, because we're just looking at aesthetics now that we know the history. But very nice indeed. And the last one I have is a £10 And of course you can see it's stamped with that cancelled mark because the private banking enterprise went bankrupt and these banknotes became redundant. Promissory notes, force of habit. Cardiff Castle, another great castle. If you ever make it to Wales, I highly recommend going to Cardiff. It's a wonderful city. So there we go. So you probably imagine on the back, it's pretty much the same as the others. So that's what I have for you today. Let me know what you think about these. Did you even know that they existed? If you didn't, I'm really glad that I could share something new with you. Now, you've probably noticed in the background I've got some new things that I will be sharing with you guys in the next few videos because I've picked up some really nice banknotes recently and I can't wait to share them. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys on the next one. It's the Money Man signing.